My father's name flashes on my phone screen for the 5th time. I watch it vibrate against my glass desk, the sleek surface a far cry from the scratched oak table where I did my homework as a child. Outside my window, Chicago's skyline gleams in the afternoon sun, 15 stories up and 800 miles from the rancher home where I learned to make myself small. I hover my finger over ignore again. The leather chair creaks as I shift my weight. The phone falls silent. 3 seconds later, an email notification appears from Lawrence Reynolds. Subject line, "Your sister needs you, last chance." My stomach tightens as I open it, the words blurring together except for the final line. Chloe's wedding is the most important event of her life. Be there or forget about any future support. A voicemail notification pops up next. I press play and set it on speaker. "Maiden, it's your father." His voice fills my apartment, commanding as ever. "I don't know what game you're playing, but this has gone on long enough. Your sister's wedding is in 2 weeks, and the festivities start this weekend. If you can't put aside whatever grievance you have for Chloe's special time, then you can forget about any future support from this family. Your mother is beside herself with worry. Call me back immediately." A bitter laugh escapes my throat. I cross to the closet and pull out a framed diploma hidden behind winter coats. The gold embossing catches the light. Maiden and Reynolds, Bachelor of Science in Data Science, summa cum laude. 3 years collecting dust instead of hanging on my wall, because old habits die hard. My phone buzzes with a text from my mother. "Please call. Your father is getting impatient." I glance at the calendar on my desk. Chloe's 2-week wedding extravaganza is highlighted in angry red. 14 days of ceremonies, parties, and photo shoots for the golden child's perfect day. I tap open my banking app. $138, $139 in savings. More than enough to never need their support again. They just don't know it yet. A memory surfaces. 3rd grade, clutching my report card with 5 perfect as. Mom at the kitchen table nodding without looking up from her magazine. "That's nice, honey." That same night, the living room erupting in cheers for Chloe's participation ribbon from the school play. Did you see how she projected her voice? She was the best one up there. Dad's face glowing with pride while I sat, invisible, on the stairs. Sophomore year, the science fair, the blue ribbon I won for analyzing local water quality. And the empty chairs where my parents should have been. They had gone to Chloe's soccer game instead. She scored 1 goal, they talked about it for weeks. Principal Williams handed me my award. "Your parents must be so proud." I nodded, the hollow feeling in my chest already familiar. Then senior year. The thick acceptance package from the University of Chicago, my hands trembling as I read the scholarship offer. Chicago. Mom's forehead creased with concern. That's so far away. Chloe might feel inferior if you go there, when she's just attending community college. Dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. "We've discussed this. You're staying local." End of story. The quiet negotiation that followed. I could live in the dorms at State, just 20 minutes away, for quiet study, I argued. They agreed, believing I'd surrendered. 2 weeks later, I boarded a bus to Chicago with everything I owned in 2 suitcases, leaving a carefully crafted paper trail of community college registration and a fake dorm assignment. The calculated risk of my first real independence. Now, I stand before my bathroom mirror, no longer the invisible daughter. My reflection shows someone they wouldn't recognize. Confident, successful, unburdened by the need for their approval. I return to my desk and trace my fingers over my name on the diploma. Maiden and Reynolds, product analyst, 6-figure salary. I whisper. Invisible no more. The laptop screen glows as I open the airline website. My fingers move decisively across the keyboard, booking a first-class ticket home. Time they finally see me, I whisper to my reflection in the darkened screen. I pack my designer luggage with precision, tucking the diploma between layers of clothes. A gentle smile spreads across my face as I imagine their expressions when they learn who I've become. Have you ever had to hide your success from those who should have celebrated it most? I murmur to my silent apartment. What would you do if your family only valued you when they needed something from you? My homecoming is about to teach them a lesson they never expected. lonely drive. I park behind a florist's van unloading cascades of white roses. My childhood home has transformed into something from a bridal magazine, with ivory fabric swags draped across the porch railings. My mother opens the door before I knock. Her hair is colored a precise shade of honey blonde, not a strand out of place. My din finally. Her hug feels like a performance, too stiff and too brief. Decided to support your sister, I see. Inside, the house smells of vanilla candles and fresh paint. Wedding planning has turned every surface into a staging area. My father emerges from his study, reading glasses perched on his nose. He doesn't hug me, just nods over a clipboard. Good you're here, he says. The programs need to be folded, and these guest welcome bags assembled. He thrusts the clipboard into my hands. Chloe needs these done by 4. I just walked in the door, Dad. And now you have something useful to do. His eyes flick over me in a quick, dismissive appraisal, as if assessing my ability to follow orders. Chloe appears at the top of the stairs, phone pressed to her ear. No, I specifically said cascading arrangements, not gathered. This is literally ruining everything. She spots me and holds up one finger in the universal sign for wait. Do you understand? This is the most important day of my life. When she finally descends, she air kisses near my cheek. Maids, thank God. The caterer is threatening to quit, and Mom is useless with the seating chart. Nice to see you too, Chloe. Elliot's planning this surprise for the reception, and I need to make sure it coordinates with everything else. Elliot. I set down my bag. Her fiancé, my mother supplies. You'll meet him at dinner. He's absolutely wonderful. Such a brilliant investor. Crypto millionaire, Chloe corrects with obvious pride. Elliot Brady arrives at precisely 6:30, carrying an expensive bottle of wine and wearing a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. He's taller than I expected, with a kind of clean-cut handsomeness that belongs in commercials for luxury watches. He greets me with a firm handshake. The mysterious sister finally appears, he says, a trace of amusement in his tone. Chloe said you were some kind of computer genius hiding away in the big city. Product analyst, I correct. At Tech Fusion. Sounds intense. He winks. I've got friends developing an AI trading platform. Revolutionary stuff. We should talk shop sometime. During dinner, Elliot dominates the conversation with tales of crypto investments and exclusive opportunities. My father hangs on every word. So, which exchanges do you primarily trade on? Ask during a rare pause. Elliot's smile freezes momentarily. Oh, a mix, mostly private platforms, exclusive access through my network. Fascinating. And your company's based where? He lifts his chin. We're decentralized, he replies smoothly. The beauty of blockchain, right? I've got partners in Singapore, Zurich, Dubai. My father shoots me a warning look. My din, not everyone wants to discuss business at dinner. Later, searching for wedding programs in my father's study, I stumble across refinancing paperwork for the house, dated 3 weeks ago. The property I grew up in, nearly paid off, now carries a sizable new mortgage. Voices drift from the adjacent dining room. Lawrence, are you sure about this second mortgage? My mother's worried tone prompts me to freeze in place. That's everything for my inheritance too. Elliot has guaranteed 20% returns minimum, my father insists. But $15,000 is. You wouldn't understand investments like these. My father cuts her off. I lean against the wall, my analyst brain calculating risk factors. Second mortgage, family savings, inheritance, all flowing toward Elliot's vague investment opportunity. My aunt's voice from just outside almost makes me jump. Then I realize it's not my aunt yet, but an echo, a memory. I recall Aunt Helen's repeated warnings about too-good-to-be-true schemes, and how she quietly tried to caution me before I left for Chicago. She might be the only person who ever believed in me. I wonder if she knows about the mortgage. The next day, I'm in the back garden, supposedly admiring the arrangements for the wedding. I see Aunt Helen approaching from the fence line, wearing a concerned look. We chat in hushed voices behind a row of hydrangeas. "He's a fraud," Aunt Helen says, her voice barely above a whisper. "You see it too." I nod, scanning the house windows to ensure no one is listening. "He's definitely not who he claims to be," I say softly. "Everything about his story screams scam." Helen sighs. "Your father won't listen to me. He's got that pride of his. Started talking about how I've always been jealous of his success. I'm worried. He's convinced Elliot is a financial genius. Mr. Wilson down the street lost $30,000 last year in an exclusive investment opportunity. It sounded awfully familiar when I heard about Elliot's proposals. Then I'll get proof," I promise quietly, a strange anger and protectiveness stirring inside me. This family might not want my help, but they'll need it when Elliot's real motives come to light. A familiar voice calls from the fence line, "Mr. Thomas, my old science teacher." "My Din, is that you?" He waves. "I've been following your career. That Chicago data science program you attended is one of the best in the country." I freeze momentarily, worried he might inadvertently reveal the truth in front of everyone. But Aunt Helen smoothly steers the conversation away, giving me a supportive pat on the shoulder. For the first time since arriving, I feel seen. Dad, Mom, Chloe, they've never given me such validation. Yet Mr. Thomas and Aunt Helen seem genuinely proud. That night, a tiny wave of resolve washes over me. I book myself a quiet booth at Rosie's coffee shop, the place where I studied calculus as a teen. The seat still squeaks. The waitress, Margie, hasn't changed one bit, though her hair is a little grayer at the temples. My laptop glows with open tabs. Business registries, investment forums, social media profiles, old court records. 3 previous identities stare back at me: Ethan Lewis, Edward Lambert, Elliot Lawson. Now, Elliot Lawrence Brady. The same man, different names, the same pattern. I sip black coffee, its bitterness matching the taste in my mouth. "Need a refill, hon?" Margie steps over, notices my screen. Her eyes widen. "My cousin lost everything to a man who looked just like that. Called himself Edward something. Lambert." My throat tightens. "That's it," Margie says. "Investment scheme. Vanished right before the wedding. Broke her heart and emptied her savings." 2 hours later, I'm sitting across from Karen, a woman in her 50s, her hands trembling around a mug. She found me through Margie's cousin, agreed to share her story. She fishes a folder from her purse and slides it across the table. Pictures, bank statements, police reports. My pulse pounds as I recognize the face. Elliot. Her wedding photos, the same charismatic smile. The final line in the police report states there wasn't enough evidence to pursue criminal charges at the time. "I thought I was special," Karen whispers. "He made me feel chosen. Then he disappeared 3 days before our wedding. Took my $60,000, plus my mother's heirloom ring." The photographs confirm what I already know. The account statements show transfers to offshore locations. The police reports detail 3 other victims with similar stories, in 3 different states. I thank Karen, pack up my evidence, and slip out into the crisp evening air. The wedding is 5 days ago. My stomach hurts. How far should I go? To save them from their own blindness. The next morning, I walk into my childhood home. It's barely past noon, but Mom corners me immediately. "Where have you been?" she demands. The flower arrangements need checking, and Chloe's having a meltdown about the place cards. "I was researching something important," I say. "More important than your sister's wedding." She thrusts a checklist at me. "Your father noticed your attitude problem. He says you've barely helped at all." A familiar weight settles on my shoulders. The invisible daughter, now visible only when she fails to meet their demands. I find Chloe in the dining room, surrounded by sample table settings and smeared mascara. She points to a pile of place cards. "The calligrapher messed up the font," she says, glaring at me. "Where were you?" I've been texting for hours. I check my phone, see 3 texts, the earliest sent 40 minutes ago. I was busy, I say, not elaborating. You've always done this, Chloe huffs. Disappearing when you're needed, then showing up to overshadow me. The accusation stings. I'm trying to help you, I say softly. By avoiding wedding preparations. By questioning Elliot's business. Her voice rises. You can't stand that I found someone amazing while you're alone in Chicago, doing whatever boring job pays your bills. I bite back the truth about my so-called boring job, which pays more than she'll likely see anytime soon, especially if Elliot empties their accounts. Instead, I examine a place card. It looks perfectly fine to me. Dad already called the calligrapher, Chloe snaps, dabbing her eyes. At least he supports me. That evening, I gather everyone in the living room. I present the evidence. Screenshots, bank records, police reports, Karen's signed statement. It's all laid out on the coffee table. My parents sit stunned on the sofa, Chloe perched on the armchair, pale as a sheet. Elliot stands by the fireplace, face composed. This is clearly a case of mistaken identity, Elliot says, that charming smile not quite concealing the flicker of annoyance in his eyes. I have a common face. People mix me up all the time. 3 different women in 3 different states with the same experience. I press, pushing the police documents toward my father. All describing a man with your appearance, your approach, your pattern. He disappears with their money, right before the wedding. My father's voice carries a warning. This is absurd. Dad, look at the pictures, I say, pointing. Look at the timeline, the pattern. Elliot's pleasant expression holds firm. I've never seen this woman, he mutters, gesturing at Karen's statement. Chloe jumps to her feet, tears streaming. I can't believe you'd go this far to ruin my happiness, maids. You show up after 4 years and immediately try to destroy the only good thing in my life. Elliot places a comforting hand on her shoulder, turning to me with practiced sympathy. It's okay, babe, he says to Chloe. Some people just don't understand innovation. I stand there, feeling my pulse quicken. I realize my miscalculation. They don't want the truth. They want the comfortable fiction that keeps Chloe on a pedestal and Elliot a prince. I watch as their eyes fill with defensive anger, some hint of confusion, but mostly denial. When you see loved ones heading for disaster, I ask, half to them, half to the silent walls, how far should you go to protect them from themselves? Would you risk further rejection to save a family who never appreciated you? No one answers. The tension in the room is suffocating. Quietly, I gather the scattered paperwork and slide it back into my folder. I can't force them to accept the truth. I feel my father's stare, rigid with disapproval, and my mother's uncertainty overshadowed by her desire for Chloe's perfect wedding. Chloe's sobs become sniffles, as Elliot hovers protectively. I walk out, the door heavier than it was when I was 17, sneaking out to study at the library. This time I'm not hiding who I am. I'm walking away because they refuse to see me, or the danger right in front of them. My phone won't stop buzzing. 2 days remain before Chloe's wedding, and the notifications morph from outrage to desperate. I flip the phone over on my kitchen counter, watch the screen light up with missed calls. Finally, I press play on the first voicemail. He's gone, my father's voice cracks. Elliot disappeared last night. Call us back. The second, the accounts are empty, everything, even your mother's retirement fund. Dad's voice is hollow. The third, the police said without a written contract, there's little they can do. My mother's voice trembles. They called it a civil matter. Please, Maddie, we need you to come home. The use of Maddie, an old childhood nickname, makes my throat tighten. A text from Chloe appears next. You were right. I didn't listen. Please help us. I stare at it. 15 floors below, cars slide through midday traffic. Lake Michigan sparkles in the distance. I remember how proud I was to make it on my own here. They never knew about my full scholarship, my achievements, my job. They never cared. Now they plead for me to save them. Call my mentor Vivian. She answers on the second ring. You sound troubled, she says instead of hello. They finally believe me about Elliot, I explain. Now that he's gone with their money, they want my help. Vivian is quiet for a moment. Boundaries aren't walls, she says gently. They're doors you control. What are you going to do? My reflection in the window reveals a woman who's stronger than she once was. After we hang up, I book a flight home for the second time this month. This time I pack only what I need for 3 days. The wedding tent stands half dismantled in the backyard when my cab pulls up. White chairs, once arranged in perfect rows, are now stacked by the fence. Wilting flower arrangements still drape the porch rails. My mother greets me, eyes puffy. She's not wearing makeup, and her hair has lost that meticulously styled look. You came, she says, arms hovering, unsure whether I'll allow a hug. Inside, my father paces the living room, phone in hand. He ends the call when he sees me, eyes flicking to my designer handbag, the watch on my wrist. He clears his throat. We thought perhaps, he begins, you might be able to help with financial assistance until we sort this out. My mother wrings her hands. What will the Hendersons think? Your father is treasurer of the country club board. The wedding was supposed to be tomorrow. How do we explain this fiasco? Chloe sits curled on the couch in sweatpants, wearing one of my old high school t-shirts. Her eyes are bloodshot from crying. If you had just been more supportive from the beginning, she says weakly, maybe I would have listened. You were always so negative. I set my handbag on the coffee table, unbutton my coat slowly. I told you the truth, I say calmly. We need your help, my mother pleads. Please. My father steels himself. This family has supported you your entire life, he says. A laugh escapes me, short and unexpected. Did you? You put a roof over my head and food on the table. That's the legal minimum of parenting, Dad. Beyond that, you handed me leftover scraps of attention whenever Chloe wasn't center stage. Chloe stares at me from across the room. So you're just going to abandon us after being right? Her voice trembles, anger and sorrow mixing. I'm not abandoning you, I say. I'm setting boundaries. I told you Elliot's scheme didn't add up. You dismissed me. I tried to protect you, and you made me the villain. Silence descends. My mother looks ready to cry. My father's eyes flick to my watch again, as though it holds the secret to solving all their problems. Chloe's face is caught between anger and shame. I can help with some things, I say, but not everything. My father opens his mouth. An objection follows. As your father, I can help you file police reports, I say, ignoring his interruption. I can refer you to a friend who specializes in financial fraud recovery. I can connect you with a lawyer who handles cases like this. I will not, however, replace the money you lost. The hush in the room is palpable. But your savings, my mother begins. Didn't you? Yes, I have substantial savings, I confirm. And I won't sacrifice my financial security to rescue you from a situation I explicitly warned you about. My father's cheeks redden. This family has always done what exactly? I take a step closer. Ignored me, belittled me, overshadowed me with Chloe. Why should I risk everything now that you suddenly need me? Chloe's voice quavers. I get it, you want to punish me. Fine, you win. I've lost everything anyway, so, are you happy? I shake my head. This isn't about punishing you. It's about me not carrying burdens you created. There's a crack in the tension when Aunt Helen enters through the front door. She regards the scene, then slides next to me, offering silent support. We need your help, maids, my mother says again, tears rolling down her cheeks. But we also need you to understand that we didn't do this intentionally. My father, seeing an opening, tries to regain control. He paces, glancing at the mortgage statement on the coffee table, then at me. As head of this family, he begins, I've always made decisions with everyone's best interests at heart. But this situation requires a united front. I'm willing to help, I say softly. Under certain conditions. I won't sign blank checks. I won't let you spin some story about how Chloe was a helpless victim. I also won't pretend I haven't been neglected. They all stare. This is new territory for them and for me. Mother's lip trembles. Blood is thicker than water, my Din. Surely you see that now. I straighten my spine. Some families are found, not inherited. I had to build my own support system in Chicago. I had to find mentors who believed in me when you didn't. Do you know how many times you told me to be more supportive of Chloe? How many events of mine you missed because she needed you for something trivial? Chloe sniffles. You've always thought you were better than me. I narrow my eyes. When did I ever say that? She shrugs, tears slipping down her cheeks. Maybe you didn't say it, but you acted like it. My teachers always compared my grades to yours. I hated how effortlessly you got straight A's. Everyone said, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" They told me how you had all these scholarship offers. Mom and Dad didn't want you to go so far away, but you did anyway. I'm momentarily stunned. I never realized Chloe felt compared to me. I was too busy feeling invisible. It wasn't effortless, Chloe, I say gently. I studied alone. I poured everything into my work because it was the only thing that gave me a sense of self-worth. You had Dad's intelligence, she mumbles, but I was the kid they fawned over. I heard Dad once say, "At least Chloe brings us joy with her performing, her activities, her personality. My Din just wants to run off to some city and crunch numbers for strangers." My father's face goes pale. He remembers saying that clearly. Our mother's lips press into a thin line, tears glistening. "I never wanted to overshadow you, Chloe," I say, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I just wanted our parents to notice me. When they didn't, I built my life without them." Aunt Helen steps forward, voice soft but firm. "I've been watching all this for years," she says. "I saw how many times this child tried to show you her accomplishments, only to be brushed aside. Lawrence, Helen, you have to admit that you favored Chloe, maybe because she seemed more fragile or more outwardly emotional. But look at the price." My father's gaze drops to the floor. My mother covers her mouth with one hand, tears streaming now. Chloe pulls her knees to her chest, quiet sobs. A long silence follows. Then I lift my briefcase onto the coffee table and withdraw documents my lawyer prepared. I set them down, the paper making a crisp sound as it touches the surface. "What's that?" my father asks warily. "This outlines the terms of my financial assistance," I say, voice steady. "A one-time solution, not an ongoing relationship. I'll transfer funds to pay off the second mortgage, directly to the bank. I'll arrange for your credit card debt to be consolidated through a financial advisor. You won't have direct access to these funds." "This is ridiculous," my father grumbles. "It's the only way I'll help." I look him straight in the eyes. "Everything goes through formal channels with documentation. Think of it as a business transaction, not a family bailout." Mother's eyes widen, flicking between Dad and me. "A business transaction." "Yes," I confirm, flipping open the top page. "It details that I'll supply a certain sum to clear the second mortgage, enough to keep your retirement from collapsing entirely." But there's also a second page. Chloe looks up. "What's on the second page?" "It's an acknowledgement," I say quietly, "that you consistently favored one child over the other for years, creating an environment of emotional neglect." My mother gasps. "We would never sign such a thing." "Then I'll leave," I say. "And you can explain to the bank why you can't make next month's payment." That's the boundary I set. I'm not going to rewrite history by pretending everything was fine. You sign an acknowledgement that it happened, and you promise to seek professional help, family therapy, before I'll even consider future contact. Otherwise, you can figure things out yourselves. My father glances at Aunt Helen, then at the folder, then at the worn carpet. His hands shake as he adjusts his glasses. "We tried our best," he says hoarsely. "Maybe," I answer. "But your best was deeply unequal." 10 painful minutes pass before the pen touches the signature line. My father signs first, my mother second, Chloe last. All three sets of eyes brim with shame, anger, sorrow, maybe a glimmer of hope. I text my financial advisor. We're proceeding with Plan A, signed documentation in place. The advisor responds within a minute. Acknowledged. We'll finalize with the bank. I look at my family. Miss Winters, our financial advisor, will be in touch. She'll handle everything. You won't see the money go in or out of your accounts directly. That's non-negotiable. Father's jaw is set. Chloe rubs her hands over her arms as if cold. Mother clasps a tissue in both hands. It's not the tearful reunion they might have imagined, but it's reality. We'll do it your way, my father finally says. The words are quiet, resigned. I gather my belongings. There are no heartfelt hugs, no emotional apologies that instantly heal years of neglect. Just the raw truth. I turn to Aunt Helen, who quietly lays a hand on my arm. I'm proud of you, she whispers, voice steady. And I'm so sorry it came to this. I nod, words catching in my throat. Thank you, I manage. I exit the house, the same front door I once tiptoed through, determined to reach Chicago. This time I walk tall. Some bridges can't be rebuilt. Some shouldn't be. A year passes, quietly and then all at once. Sunlight streams through the bay windows of my home office, the new craftsman bungalow I purchased in a quieter Chicago neighborhood. I sit at a sturdy maple desk, reviewing my meticulously arranged schedules and tasks. My diploma hangs on the wall at eye level, no longer hidden behind coats or illusions. My laptop chimes with a video call. It's Layla, the third student in my mentorship program for first-generation college women. She appears on screen, beaming. They accepted me, she says, practically bouncing in her seat. I used the interview prep technique you taught me, and when they asked why I deserved it more than others, I didn't shy away or apologize. I told them exactly what I'd accomplish if they invested in my education. My heart warms. You earned it, I reply. There's a difference between demanding handouts and demonstrating your worth. She grins, nods rapidly. I wanted to thank you, she says. No one in my family really understands how big this is. They only see me as the quiet one. You saw something else. I smile gently. Sometimes the quiet ones have the biggest voices when given the chance. Congratulations, Layla. After the call ends, I make some notes in my digital planner, then step outside to my backyard garden. The spring air greets me, mild and fragrant. I've spent months amending this soil, removing rocks and debris, planting seeds. Now tiny green shoots have begun to stretch toward the sun. I kneel, gloved hands gently brushing away weeds near the roses. They have new buds, a promise of blossoms to come. On the patio table, an open envelope bears a letter from Dr. Chen, my therapist, summarizing 1 year of weekly sessions. The official assessment notes my progress in establishing healthy boundaries and recognizing self-worth independent of parental approval. I read the lines again. Patient demonstrates significant progress and appears committed to ongoing mental well-being. The quiet satisfaction that stirs in my chest is something I never felt in my old home, no matter how many A's I earned. Here in my own space, my achievements breathe freely. Wednesday afternoons, I volunteer at the local community center, teaching financial literacy to young women. Last week, Tanya, a bright 17-year-old, recounted the day she recognized a pyramid scheme targeting her mother. I showed her the math, Tanya said, excitement shining in her eyes. I was like, Mom, look, these numbers don't add up. She tried to brush me off, but I kept pushing until she understood. That moment resonates with me. If only I could have saved my family from Elliot. Yet I did try. At least I can help someone else now. My phone buzzes. Aunt Helen's monthly update. The text reads, Your father and mother still working on paying down refinanced mortgage. Chloe's in therapy, part-time job at the bank. No mention of further wedding drama. They rarely speak about Elliot, but they haven't tried contacting you again. I release a slow breath, relief and lingering sadness mixing. Some boundaries hold, some distances remain. And that's how it needs to be right now. Can't fix them. I can only maintain my own peace. The evening edges in, painting the sky in soft oranges and pinks. Tonight, I'll receive an award from the Mentorship Coalition for the impact my organization has had on first-generation college students. It's a small ceremony, but a meaningful one. In the auditorium, the applause is genuine. I accept the plaque, glass and metal catching the stage lights. I scan the crowd as I speak. When I started this program, I say into the microphone, I thought I was simply helping others find the support I never had. What I discovered was that worth doesn't come from external validation. It grows from within, when we recognize ourselves and refuse to be made invisible. I pause, scanning faces full of hope. Every single person here deserves to be seen, to be heard, and to be recognized for who they really are. No empty chairs where my parents should sit. Instead, I see Dr. Chan in the third row, nodding in encouragement. I see Vivian, my mentor, smiling. A few colleagues from work, who appreciate my analytical mind for exactly what it is. My neighbors, who wrote me kind notes when I moved in, have come. Friends, real friends, who ask how I'm doing and wait for the answer. Back home, the new normal feels refreshingly stable. I set the Mentorship Award next to the black and white photo of me at 20. Wearing my cap and gown, grinning ear to ear on the University of Chicago campus. I never mailed that picture to my parents. I doubt they would have displayed it. But now, it has a place of honor on my bookshelf. I open my laptop to finalize the details for the Reynolds Visibility Scholarship, a fund I established to help academically accomplished students whose achievements were overlooked. The essay question reads, describe a time when your contributions went unrecognized, and how you maintained your sense of value. I smile ruefully, thinking of my younger self. A ping from Sasha, my first mentee, brightens the screen. You saw me when no one else did, her message reads. That changed everything. My vision blurs a bit. Maybe it's tears of happiness. I close my eyes for a moment, remembering the times I felt invisible, the times I wished for someone to say those exact words. Sunset stretches across my backyard in deep purples and pinks, a gentle hush falling over the world. I water my garden with calm, methodical care. The tomato plants are thriving, deep green leaves glistening with droplets. The breeze rustles their stems, whispering life. I brush a hand against a tender rosebud, not yet opened but full of possibility. I pruned it severely in the fall, cut it back so it could grow stronger in spring. Some things grow stronger when cut back, I murmur, a small smile tugging at my lips. The hush of evening embraces me as I step back, feeling the warmth of my own home, the peace of my own soul. From the kitchen the phone rings. A quick glance. Aunt Helen again, checking on me. I answer with a gentle laugh in my voice, prepared to share the positive news about the scholarship. The conversation is brief but warm, her tone brimming with pride. As I hang up, I close my eyes and savor the subtle hum of life around me. Sometimes the happiest endings aren't about sweeping reconciliations or dramatic confessions. Sometimes they're simply about standing in a place that feels like home, in a life you shaped, knowing you've broken the chains that once held you down. Knowing, too, that you have the power to keep thriving no matter who notices or doesn't. But for once I notice. And that, I think, is the happiest ending I can imagine. I lean against the doorway, letting the evening air wash over me. My garden, my house, my peace. No longer overshadowed, no longer invisible. I straighten my shoulders, step outside into the gentle twilight, and smile at the life I've claimed. Even if my family never fully understands, I've found my own wholeness, my own happiness. And that is more than enough.